I had taken a video of this when I was still living in a different location, but looking on it this afternoon, I realized it was a bit rough. You couldn't really see as much as I wanted you to, and so I decided to retake the videos with a light box rather than with just a camera at a park in the downtown part of a city. The first thing to really note is I have since started using longer braids to make my rope baskets. This is partly because I want less fail points, like here or here or there or there. There's even a couple visible on the outside that I don't want to have visible. That looks... Is that only half lit? It's fine. It's tolerable. What? Huh. Alright, don't touch the wires. Good to know. I'm retaking that. Alright, I am back. I grabbed a couple of different things to show off. I don't currently have the white or the black that I used for this, but I do have a version of the rainbow stripes that I had used for this, which is just your basic acrylic rainbow yarn, and then I separated out each of the colors and combined the colors together into the color sets that you see here. And then I have a version of the shiny, it's a sparkle acrylic yarn. They have their own shimmer to them. This particular one is more of an iridescent coloration with purple, whereas on this one it is the with the black, it's a gold metallic strand running through it, and with the white it is a silver metallic strand going through it. The second basket I made has its own set of metallics. And the biggest thing about braiding with the metallics is that the metallic strands can break on you as you're braiding. So you'll end up with sections that have a whole bunch of sparkle and other sections that have a lot less sparkle than they should. Excuse me for a second. I'm trying to reattach. Ow. That, alright. Then, the other thing is, start off with smaller ropes so that you get a handle on the technique, but I would recommend, give or take about 5-ish yards rather than the maybe 1 yard that I had for a lot of these yarn combinations. because it just works better to sew together later. The other thing to note is that the color of the thread is a lot more visible than I had originally anticipated. You can definitely see it with the white strands of thread that I have at the bottom, and even with the purple threads that I have going up the sides. I really wasn't anticipating how much of an impact that the thread would have on the end result of the color. And I had even put in like a bit of brown, which, let me see if it's visible here. So, down in that section there is a brown I had tried out for a bit, and I really didn't like how that ended up blending with the variety of other colors that I had. But I did take that in mind for my later baskets. This does end up differently for the poof yarns, the really fluffy yarns. The color of the thread has a lot less impact on it, but when I first started making these, I was very surprised at how much of an impact just the choice of thread color had on the end result. It's a lot less evident with the purple, but it is still noticeable close up. But the white has a really large impact, and the brown just kind of made it muddy. The other thing I kind of regretted doing was randomizing the color blend together. I was going for a lot more of a rainbow look with the yarn, and it ended up being kind of a hodgepodge assortment of colors rather than an actual planned blend. It still looks really cool. It definitely makes it very distinct, but it is not what I had in mind when I had originally made this. Now, couple of things to note even beyond the colors, that when I was still figuring this out, I kind of regret doing. The first is sewing much too tight for the yarn, rope, because this is definitely, let me see if you can see it well on this, a lot more rounded at the bottom, and you can see a ridge line here. This is actually supposed to be part of the flat bottom, but instead of that, it is a more rounded bottom. I think this is partly because I tend towards sewing tight anyways. I really try and keep my sewing loose, but I don't always manage to do that. And I really kind of sew very small. The second thing to note is when I do braids, they are kind of tight. Yours might end up looser, but having the 3 braids does help with the strength of the ropes. And when you're ending a rope, rather than having them come together like I did, I will show you a different way to do it so that they blend together more. so that you don't get quite as much poofs. They look kind of cute, but they weren't the intended end result that I had wanted. What else? Now, I did have quite a bit left over of this, and I then bought at least 2 to 3 more of said rainbow yarn to work with. So you don't have to use the rainbow that I ended up doing, but I've been trying a couple of different things with the either new yarn or the added yarn. The first is separating out each of the colors and combining them into a more distinct rainbow coloration. So I have a version of this that is slightly different in color, but this particular one, if we look at our end bits, if you can see it, so this one here is orange, yellowish green, and yellow. This one is green with the kind of light green, cyan green, and then the normal, cyan blue, and then regular blue, and then for the purple bit, it is a bright purple, a reddish purple, and a purple. And that's how that combines. And then I have a slightly different color combination that I put somewhere else. But it basically ended up looking the same as this did. And then when I braid them together, I will choose what type of thread to sew it with. Whether it be a variegated or a metallic or a glow-in-the-dark or a metallic glow-in-the-dark, which ends up looking really cool both in the daylight and in the dark. And then I made a couple of coasters. So there's this coaster that is a bunch of the different purples that I had left over from that group, with the black and gold and the white and silver, and then a green thread sewn into it to make it into the coaster shape. I still have a bunch of smaller individual braids that were just too short to try and braid it together. Eventually I'm going to make those into some combination of coasters or ornaments or who knows what, and I am going to so there's those. I also have a blue of that, and then in progress I have a much larger piece that I am trying out, and this one is hopefully going to be another kind of rainbow basket. I'll have enough left over from building up the sides that I can use them for other baskets as well. If you look at this one, it's kind of got a couple of different types of purples in it. There's some of the red. And then for the thread that I'm using, I am going to go turn off a couple of lights. I'm going to let the glow-in-the-dark charge for a second while I do that. So please hold. Alright, so hopefully I am recording this time, because I thought I was recording before and I actually wasn't. But this should be enough time, there should have been enough time for the glow-in-the-dark thread to have gotten a charge. So, just to warn people, I am turning the light off in 3, 2, 1. Then, now you can see the glow-in-the-dark of the thread that I used. This actually turns out pretty cool for the more my shiny metallic glow-in-the-dark threads. But, warning everybody, I am going to be turning back on the light in 3, 2, 1. So, that's that. And then, in addition to doing those projects, I had enough left of some of the plain colors to play around with. So I made, let me get these out of the way. I made things like this. So there's that. And similar types of baskets that have been shown off on the channel. Then I did a second basket after this one that was a bit more color focused. So give me a moment to get that one set up. So the light goes back on. The second basket that I did is, might be hard to see in here. It is a bit large, so I'm going to take the camera and show this off a bit in a slightly more broad sense. Here it is. Let me get everything steadied out. So it's a bit of a odd shape. It's got an interesting bottom. You can definitely see the rainbow colored threads that I used to sew it together. And I'm going to pause this as I put the phone back up, because I don't know how that'll affect the audio. Now, going from the lessons that I learned from the first one, the yarn ropes were definitely a lot longer this time around. I made sure to have probably about 5 or so yards of yarn braided together into these ropes. That still does mean with such a large project that there are still weak points to work with. The other thing, so there's like this weak point here, there's this one here that's kind of at a crucial point with the handle here. I would have preferred if I had remembered to try and do 2 yarn ropes, but this is still pretty sturdy. It was finished about the same time as the first rope basket was done. And the other thing that I have kind of learned since this is to, at the end point of your yarn rope where you want to stop, rather than having it end at the top of your yarn basket, rope basket, you can sew it in so that it's more attached to prevent that kind of weak point to it. I did a really interesting pattern with the rainbow tonality of the threads. I basically used your standard embroidery thread, about one strand of each of these, and then just sewed it to an amount that I liked. And then for the purpley pink yarn, it was a variegated yarn, so it changed colors as it went through different stages, which is why there are so many different purples in this. And similar to the first basket, I had metallic threads or metallic yarns as part of the white and black sections, but instead of the gold and silver I had done for the first one, these are white with iridescent metallic and black with a black shiny bit to it, which isn't quite as obvious on this one. It still does have a bit of sparkle, but it's not quite as over dramatic as the first set ended up becoming. This is a lot more subtle, a lot more chill, but it still ended up pretty cool. The only thing to note is that I did try a metallic thread for a little bit, and I ended up not liking how that looked. And to finish it off, I did a black thread because I didn't want to continue with the red, because it was only supposed to be one layer of the red for this. So that's that. And then because I had so much of this particular yarn left, I did a bunch of different experimentation bits as well for these. So these are yarns that I have yet to braid together, but you can really see the difference in the purples and pinks that it had. So this one is an almost burgundy or reddish purple almost completely, and then like a little bit of pink at the end. This one is just the pale pink. And for this particular view, you can really make out the iridescent white, or the iridescent rainbow on the white, and then the black shiny, kind of like a tinsel almost. And then for this one, you can see the variegatedness of part of the yarn group as well. And then I have since braided a number of different combinations together, just because I had so many left. The first is, give me a second while I grab them. So there's this that is just one single yarn braid braided together. I'm not sure if I actually showed you this for the other group, but it is really amazing how far down you can get the size of the yarn to become as you're braiding them together. Oh wait, I did the other one to do that example. So you've got these 3 strands of yarn. And that's, you know, a pretty thick size of yarn. But when you braid it together, it's almost like you have one of the yarns in size, but all three of the yarns in strength. This comes into play a lot more with the thicker yarns that are available to buy, and for wool yarn. I've heard from somebody who does crochet that I started asking questions from that the wool yarn tends to become a lot thinner if you pull it tight, which I can very much see. Sorry about that. That is why I haven't recorded any voiceovers in the past couple of weeks. I didn't want you guys hearing a whole bunch of coughs. I'm a lot better now than I had been. And then, so I might either turn this into just a single rope something, or I might wait for other yarns that I'll like to combine with it to make it into a 9 yarn rope. So that would be this. So this is what my purple rope basket looked like before I braided it, or I sewed it together. So you can see that there is a thin side and then there's thick side. When I had done that first go around to build up the sides, I had actually done, I had layered the two thick sides together so that it ended up being kind of a thin thing. And then I did end up making it go up the sides instead. So there's this, here is a single pink and kind of reddish purple to combine together. And then I started playing around with the colors a bit more. So there's this one that has most of the purples, but it also has one of the blacks combined together. And then I have a mostly one-tone purple with one of the variegated shades put into it. There's another one that is a lot of different purples. And then there is this reddish purple with one of the, is it one or two? Give me a second. It's just one. One of the other variegated yarns thrown in to give a bit of contrast. And in a similar manner to the purples, I have a whole stack of single yarns that I'm just waiting to try and color match better. And that's partly because some of the lengths are very different with each other. Some of the color combinations are kind of contrasting and clashing. Give me a second. And some of them are just too much of a particular color that I just didn't want together. And it's just because of how the color combination would end up. So like there's these two here, and like if it was just the blue and the green, or just the blue and the purple, I would combine them together. but because it is the green with the blue and the purple, I'm a bit hesitant to combine those together. I'm really not sure how those would come out. There's this reddish purple. I think this particular rope is a bit too short for some of the other ones, and I don't really want to waste the yarn as much. And then there's stuff like this one, where I'm kind of waiting for a third either of the pink and green or the green, different colors to combine together. Which will end up cool. And then in addition to the rainbow ones, I've also made this kind of fall or candy colored braided yarn rope. That's pretty fun. And I've actually started sewing this together. And I believe, let me take a secondary look at this. No, that's just a regular plain old yarn. There is one version of this where it is one of my glow-in-the-dark / metallic yarns that I had picked up at one point. And that ended up pretty cool. Now, to continue on with a couple of hopefully upcoming videos, to start with, in terms of the very poofy yarns that I am using as my very first braiding / sewing together stuff. I've got a couple of different ropes that I have already braided, and then one basket that I have, or 2 baskets? No, 1 basket that I have left that I've already finished out. So, first off is this pale pink rope, the really thick yarn. It's about a centimeter wide, I want to say. And when you're trying to sew this together, you can't really see where the interconnecting points are. It gets a lot easier when you have an alternating color. I had combined this black, thinner, 2 of these thinner black poofy yarns with this pink poofy yarn to make a really nice, pretty sturdy basket. But in comparison to the other yarns, when you sew them together with the thread, you cannot really make out the thread that's used. So having some color to it really just kind of messes with the point. But the good thing about this is it is a lot more, it's a lot less prone to bowing out than the thinner yarns are. So there's that one, and then I had done a red and black version in a similar pattern, and of course there's that puffy pink and black that I had. And more recently I've done this, which is the slightly thinner poofy yarns, with the orange and black. And then I've also started trying to blend different size yarns together, and that's where this comes in. So I tried to just braid together a couple of these type of yarns with the poofy yarn, and it turned out interesting, but not in the way I intended. So I have to rethink this. I am probably going to either have this be a 9 yarn braided rope, which is, you know, 3 of the 3 yarn ropes braided together, or I am going to use a slightly thicker yarn to accent the orange, but I had to find the right color tones for that. Then there is also these, of course. These work pretty well. They're pretty easy to work with. They braid really well. They're a cotton yarn. This particular one, oh wait, that one's separate. So there's this one that is 9 of those cotton yarns braided together. And then I have also tried braiding 4 yarns together. And this is one of those that I have to kind of do all at once, do all at the same time, otherwise I lose track of the patterning and it takes me a little bit to restart, which gets complicated. And we also have this. I have done a couple of different rope baskets with this type of yarn, and in the same manner as the poofy yarn, when you are sewing this together, you cannot see the color of the thread that you use to sew this together, and you can't really see where they combine together to sew into it, so that's why I have the gray and the purple to work with, rather than just having it be all gray or all purple, because that lets you see where to sew into. And I already have something else recorded, or starting to record, wherein I got this from a friend of mine. She didn't really know what to do with it. It is a red yarn with a much thinner black yarn attached to it, and then sewed in, or rolled into a cake. This makes for some cool patterning, I think, with crochet. But for what I've used it for, and she also had a blue with white. So here is the braided together section of just the 3, or well, actually it's 6 total yarns. So this one is 2 of the red and blacks and 1 of the blue and whites. Same with that one. And then I had tried for something more complicated, and just to practice to see how this works. And I have decided to take it apart because I ended up really not liking how it was turning out, because if we look at this, first off, it's supposed to be kind of like, let me move these out of the way. First off, it is supposed to have a flat bottom, slightly tilted sides, and a connecting bit. And I don't know what I was thinking when I happened to do this, but I am just confused. So I'm going to be taking this apart and working with the individual pieces to make it into something else, because I don't really feel like undoing all of the thread work that I have done, but at the same time, I am just so frustrated with trying to get this to not do all this. I have other things that work far better than this. See the oval basket, see the round baskets. Like this is just not what I wanted it to be. But I'll get at least 2 pieces out of this. That's pretty cool. And for this one, it is 2 of the blues with white and 1 of the reds with black. And I also, just to show how to combine the thinner yarn in with the thicker yarn, I made my own version of it on camera. That'll be a later video as well. I am going through and editing that out and figuring out if I need to retake some shots. And then, so this is a thicker version to work with that might end up a bit more obvious as to being red, white, blue, and black. But you can see so here is the red, the thin strand of black, the blue, the thin strand of white, and then the red with the other thin strand of black. All at these ends here. And that will be sewn into some kind of basket at a later point in time as well. And then a couple of notes on yarns with, I don't know quite what to call these, but like little accent points to them. When you braid these, it is highly likely that you will have bits that fall off. And this is more likely to not than your typical yarns when braiding them together. And the other thing is that these end up a lot thinner than you expect them to be. So keep an eye out for that. This is a lot harder to work with than, say, your normal, regular old acrylic yarn. It ends up looking a lot more interesting, but say this bit here, that is less likely to make it through the braiding process than, say, something that's a bit more embedded into the yarn. Hopefully that was on screen. All right. I'm sure that there is more stuff that will come up. There are going to be more braiding types that I will be putting together. But this is just a note for if you plan on trying to be a bit more experimental in your process. There might be, you might have some issues with how thin your braided yarn rope becomes. And oh, and also one last thing, I will show off a couple of my other finished baskets, one of my finished baskets and coasters there that I will be working on figuring out how to teach as well. There is this flower / garlicky one. The cool thing about this is even though it's made from the white yarn, it was part of a batch that was dyed different colors, kind of like Christmassy colors. So you get kind of a very faint tie-dye look to it. And then the purple thread that sews it together is glow in the dark. And I also have this coaster here. That is the sparkle / glow in the dark thread I had picked up that helped inspire the name of my channel. I am going to let these charge as well as I go turn off the light. So I'm going to pause this while I do that. Alright, in the same manner as the last time that I did the lights to this, just to warn you all, I am turning off the light in 3, 2, 1. And so the purple metallic, or the purple glow in the dark came out really well. And then hopefully the other metallic also will show up when I put it to my computer. And then in 3, 2, 1, the lights are back on. And I have one last piece that is done with just plain old rope, but this one is glow in the dark. It was my first time trying to make a flower type shape. Oh, let me get that off. Close enough. And this is just purple and black button yarn, pretty thick, so that it goes through the rope really easily. And a couple of notes about doing the flower pattern is how you have it here doesn't really matter in the end, it seems like. You'll still get the flower shape as long as you have that outline kind of thing. But because this is glow in the dark rope, it did end up pretty darn bright in terms of the glow in the darkness. So once again, 3, 2, 1. Hopefully that shows up on camera. I might try to let that sit for a little bit longer. Hang on a second. Oops, excuse me. Sorry about that. I usually try and turn off the video before I do that. Alright, hopefully that's enough. And 3, 2, 1. Well, that's much better. Alright. And 3, 2, 1. Alright. Hopefully that is an enjoyable time of me showing off some of my learning processes that I've had so far with figuring out how to do these. And then if things go well, next week should be turning the thicker braided rope of the black and pink yarns into a basket, and then possibly a couple of other videos in the works of setting up the braids, braiding those braids together into the 9 yarn ropes, and then sewing those into different shaped baskets. Next week should be a round basket, and then if I have enough of that yarn left, I could also do an oval basket or a square basket as well from the puffy yarn. All of you have a wonderful week. Please try and do one nice thing for someone that you care about. If you happen to have snow, try and go out and enjoy it if you happen to like it, or enjoy the warmth of tea or coffee if you don't. And I will hopefully have a few more videos ready to go. Thank you very much. Please do like and subscribe. And have a great rest of your day, whatever time it happens to be. Goodbye.